Forget nukes. Long before we could even split an atom, humanity was coming up with some truly creative ways to kill each other. We're talking about weapons so wild, so brutal, you'd swear they were from some fantasy movie. But nope, they were 100% real. Let's get into it.
And we're going to kick things off with, well, the single grossest but also one of the most effective bioweapons in all of human history. Yeah, I'm talking about poop. Seriously. See, even before anyone knew what a germ was, our ancestors figured out a pretty simple rule. Human waste makes you really sick. So naturally, they weaponized it.
So this first section is all about how ancient armies looked at the nastiest stuff in nature and thought, yeah, I can use that to kill someone.
And just look at the creativity here. You've got the Scythians making this disgusting cocktail for their arrows with poop, blood, and viper venom. In medieval Europe, they were launching barrels of the stuff over castle walls. During the plague, they'd fling infected feces. The Chinese had actual poop-filled dirty bombs. And I mean, this isn't just ancient history. Even the Viet Cong coated their punji sticks in feces. The whole point wasn't to kill you quickly. Oh no, it was all about giving you a slow, miserable, infected death.
Okay, so poop is, well, it's pretty passive, right? It just sits there. But what if you wanted your bioweapon to, fly and sting and chase your enemies down?
Well, you gotta hand it to the Mayans. They came up with a truly brilliant piece of psychological warfare, the hornet bomb. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. A simple clay pot, just jam-packed with hundreds of very angry hornets. Now, you might be thinking, why hornets? Why not bees? Good question. See, a bee is on a one-way mission. It stings you once, and that's it. Game over for the bee. But hornets? Oh, hornets are a different story. These guys are predators. And I love how the source material puts it. They can, quote, shank you with their venom-filled stinger as many times as they want. They're basically tiny, flying, reusable death machines. And making one was disturbingly simple. You just use some smoke to calm the hornets down, scoop them into a clay pot or a gourd, and then, right before you chuck it at your enemy, you shake it like you've never shaken anything before. They even rigged up dummy soldiers with these hornet bombs for heads, so an enemy warrior would charge in, smash the head, and get an instant faceful of pure, stinging rage. Alright, so we've covered weaponized nature. Now let's get into some really devious traps and poisons. This is where it's less about brute force and more about being clever and deadly. So meet the guan, which translates to ghost arrow. It's basically an ancient Chinese caltrop. Those little spiky things you throw on the ground to stop soldiers or horses. But this wasn't just a spike. They would slow cook it in a lovely stew of human feces and poison. So think about it this way. It was like stepping on a Lego, if that Lego was guaranteed to give you a fatal infection.
And staying in ancient China for a minute, we have got to talk about one of the weirdest looking weapons I've ever seen. The wolf brush. Now, this thing was invented by a brilliant military strategist named Qi Jiguang. He had a big problem. Japanese pirates were raiding the coast with these huge, deadly two-handed swords.
And his solution was not subtle. The wolf brush was just massive. We're talking up to 16 feet long. This wasn't a weapon for fancy dueling. This was about creating a giant, spiky, poisonous wall of, get the heck away from me. The design itself is actually kind of simple, but totally genius. You take a huge piece of super hard bamboo, stick a spear on the end, but here's the key. You leave all the little branches sticking out, and then you dip the tip of every single branch in lethal poison. So if the main spear point somehow missed you, one of the dozens of poison-tipped branches probably wouldn't. Okay, so let's shift gears. Now we're going to talk about weapons that were, frankly, almost as dangerous to the person using them as they were to the enemy. We're talking about a level of skill that is just mind-boggling. And this quote right here? It's the absolute perfect way to describe our next weapon. In the hands of a master, this is exactly what it is. This is the urumi, an 11th century Indian whip sword. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's got these long, flexible, razor-sharp steel blades, and some versions had up to 32 of them, all attached to one handle. It's less of a sword and more of a deadly steel ribbon of chaos. So to use it, you had to swing these blades in these constant, wide, flowing circles, creating that spinning ball of death that you just couldn't block with a normal shield. But here's the kicker. One tiny mistake, one moment where you lose focus, and those blades could whip right back around and slice off your own arm, or leg, or head. which is exactly why it was the last weapon a warrior ever learned. Only a true master could even think about using it without accidentally killing themselves.
All right, let's go big. We're moving on from personal weapons to the huge, terrifying machines of ancient engineering. These things were designed for one reason and one reason only: mass destruction.
And where else would we start but with one of the greatest geniuses in history, Archimedes? When the Romans showed up with their navy to attack his home city, Syracuse, he didn't just build a weapon, he basically built a ship-eating monster.
The idea was just brutally simple and effective. You've got this giant crane on the city walls. It drops a massive hook down onto a Roman ship. Once the claw grabs on, the crane just lifts the entire ship straight out of the water, with the crew still on it. And then it just drops it. Bam! The ship either shatters on impact or flips over and sinks instantly. It worked so well that the Roman sailors were absolutely terrified of it.
Okay, lifting a ship out of the water is pretty wild. But what about the world's first bomber plane? Yeah, you heard me. Hundreds of years before the Wright brothers.
This was the Tianbingjian, which means heavenly soldier arrow. Picture this. It's the middle of the night. A massive 9-foot kite is flown silently over an enemy camp. Strapped underneath is a box filled with 100 rocket-powered arrows and bombs, and it's all lit by one very long, slow-burning fuse. The whole idea was to float the kite into the perfect position just as the fuse hits the jackpot, and then rain down fire and chaos on the sleeping soldiers below.
And as if that wasn't crazy enough, there was also a kamikaze version. Instead of a box of rockets, they'd strap a death row convict to the kite. Seriously, gave him some bombs and rockets, and his job was to fly over enemy lines and launch the attack himself. Just what an absolutely insane way to go.
So let's just run that back for a second. We've talked about weaponized poop, flying bombs full of hornets, poison caltrops, a giant 16-foot poison brush, a sword that could kill you just by looking at it wrong, a giant claw that eats ships, and literal kamikaze kites. Wow.
I mean, the level of creativity here is just, it's both genius and absolutely terrifying. From the simplest things in nature to these incredible feats of engineering, it seems like our ability to invent new ways to fight is endless. And that really leaves you with one kind of chilling thought. If this is the stuff they were dreaming up centuries ago, what are they thinking up right now?